twist here at Mox Boarding House Seattle. We have Wonrae K, the only remaining 4-0 player, against Alex L at Zenconic on Twitter. All right. This is a really interesting team coming out of Wonrae K. A lot of these Pokemon don't see a whole lot of use, especially Morpeko and Ninetales. And to a lesser extent, Sylveon. Sylveon has sort of been left by the wayside as sort of an inferior version of Togekiss. But Sylveon at 4-0 is super cool. Oh, also
Golisopod, also
Golisopod. Love that
basically
guy.
he just has a team of like 4 Pokemon that are not very high in usage overall.
And then Whimsicott and Dragapult are just fantastic. So we'll have to see if these Pokemon have been carrying their weight or if it's just Whimsicott, Dragapult winning games. Looking at the teams here, this is some pretty cool stuff. I am liking this move. We'll have to see it comes out against here. I don't think it will. All right, Zenconic on the other end, Gothitelle, Togekiss, Gastrodon, Arcanine, Snorlax, Excadrill. Gothitelle and Snorlax, of course, very powerful next to each other. We saw those two together a lot in 2018 at the very start of the format. Gothitelle, Snorlax, Belly Drum, Heal Pulse, Trick Room, yada, yada, yada. It's pretty good, so we'll have to see if all of that can come out together here. But it'll be the tried and true Togekiss Excadrill combo coming out of Alex as Wonrae leads Morpeko Dragapult.
So I'm very excited to see what this Morpeko is going to do because I haven't really seen this Pokemon at all.
Yeah, I know it's very electric type, and then it changes to very dark
It changes,
type?
yeah, no, so it's an electric type that switches to dark.
Okay.
So it's electric dark at all times, but it's like signature move.
Okay.
Switches between electric and dark depending on
Interesting.
The turn number.
And the signature move Aura Wheel also gives it a speed boost when it's used?
I don't know
right.
off the top of my head.
We'll let you know if we see it here. Maxing the Dragapult. Dragapult is a big ol' dragon sitting on the field here. We'll have to see if Alex chooses to match with his own turn 1 Dynamax.
And Alex does. Both of his Pokemon kind of being reasonable Dynamax targets, so we'll have to see which one he picks as it goes out. And it is indeed the Excadrill, hoping to get those defensive stats boosted up, just like we saw last round.
And sort of like we saw round 3, Excadrill can be very powerful, and there is no Intimidate on Wonrae K's side to bring it down. So Alex is just going to immediately Dynamax Excadrill and start putting out damage.
And Steel Spike coming out from Wonrae. Kind of a move you don't see very often on Dragapult, but dealing good amount of damage despite the Berry, probably in 2-hit range. As another weird move with the Phantasm coming out from this Excadrill, almost as if they switched moves, it seems like.
It is a little funky. I believe the Phantasm comes off of Shadow Claw and the Steel Spike comes off of Steel Wing. Very strongly suggests that this is a physical Dragapult. I don't think that it gets Flash Cannon or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't believe so. And we see the Aura Wheel immediately, giving the speed boost that you mentioned before, dealing a good amount of damage as Electric Aura Wheel, and we see Morpeko switches over to Dark mode.
Hangry. It's hangry. It's coming.
It's very hangry.
Well, it's probably not going to do a whole lot to this Excadrill, but if there's something like maybe like an Arcanine here, or Gothitelle, it could probably dish out a whole lot of damage to those Pokemon. And will be an Arcanine.
It's going into Arcanine. So we do have potential to see another Aura Wheel come out. Intimidate going to reduce the attack off Morpeko, but Dragapult, having that clear body ability, gets to ignore it, keeping its attack at a nice, solid stage.
Clear body is an excellent ability in this format. It blocks Intimidate, it blocks Snarl, it blocks a whole lot of the stray status drops from max moves. It really keeps your Dragapult in tip-top shape, sort of similar to, I think the last good clear body user we saw was Metagross back in 17, also an incredible powerhouse in that format.
Yeah, definitely. And Morpeko reveals another interesting thing. It gets Parting Shot.
Wow.
Kind of giving a pseudo-Intimidate onto this Excadrill, and being able to switch out to relative safety, avoid any max quakes potentially aimed at it, as Golisopod comes out.
Yeah, Dragapult will fire off a max Phantasm, get a whole lot of physical damage on that Arcanine. That was a lot of damage. Was that a critical hit? I feel like that was a critical hit.
Yeah, defense dropping and no crit.
No critical hit. That was
very fragile Arcanine or a very high. Well, Max Quake going into this Goliosopod, it doesn't care too much. Gonna have a nice amount of HP. Excadrill being able to build up that special defense, though, is going to potentially help it as the game goes along.
Yeah, and Wonrae just putting on a show on Alex right now, taking a knockout turn 1, taking a knockout turn 2, and Dragapult is still in max mode and ready to fire off an attack.
Yeah, Alex now brings in the Gastrodon, but I feel like he wants that for potentially later in the game. Kind of forced into it at this point. Will help against Goliosopod's potential water moves.
Yeah.
But not sure how well it'll hold on against this full team from Wonrae.
Yeah. I mean, Dragapult is probably going to use a Max Phantasm here, right? Do a whole lot of damage, and wow, that was a lot of
First
damage.
impression, dealing half to that Gastrodon as Max Phantasm now goes into Excadrill, taking it out after the defense drop from the previous one.
Yeah. And now it's just Excadrill against the world. Not a particularly... Oh, sorry. Excadrill going down.
Yeah. And Gastrodon has to live in
Gastrodon against the world, and
Earth
not
Power.
a good position for Gastrodon at all. What a dominating performance by Wonrae in that first game.
Yeah.
Just a knockout every turn. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's definitely one way to go and take it. Just like, if you can take a Pokemon out every turn, usually teams can't keep up.
We'll have to see if Alex has some way to stop the momentum coming out of Wonrae for this second game. And I'm just not really sure what options he has. Togekiss, of course, looks very good against Dragapult, but it took a whole lot of damage from that Aura Wheel, and maybe he'll have to set up something with like Gothitelle and Snorlax, of course. Dragapult being very fast, doesn't want to be under Trick Room, as Dragapult will be cleaning up this game here with Dragon Darts. Signature move. Hits twice. Can hit either target or locks onto a single target and hits it twice. Complicated move
has
there.
a lot of interesting properties.
Yeah.
And one thing you have to wonder, though, is how much Alex can prepare for this. You gotta imagine a lot of these are Pokemon that he just hasn't seen that much before.
Yeah.
And does seeing that Aura Wheel damage and the parting shot, like maybe, and just how much damage first impression from Goliosopod does, is that enough to give him a game plan to deal with Wonrae?
I'm not sure. There are still so many tricks going on Wonrae's team. I have to imagine that Ninetales and Sylveon, given those sort of maybe unconventional or not very often seen sets on Wonrae's other Pokemon, you have to imagine that Sylveon might just Sylveon and Ninetales might also have strange sets. But I think one of the biggest things for Alex coming into this game, he needs to just not Max Phantasm that Dragapult. Please do not hit the weakness policy users with super effective moves. They will just take knockout after knockout. It won't end well.
Absolutely. And not being able to KO and not getting any stat changes because of Clear Body on the Dragapult really just puts him in not as great of a situation as it seems hitting with a super effective max move.
Yeah. We'll have to see if Alex has the shakeups and changes that he needs to take on Wonrae coming into Game 2 here of Round 5 at Hawks Boarding House, Seattle. Premier Challenge. I just like saying those words, sorry.
Loading in.
It'll be Arcanine and Excadrill coming out of Alex into Morpeko and Dragapult for Wonrae.
Wonrae opting for the same lead. No real reason to change. This seemed to answer most of Alex's Pokemon very well.
Yep. And you have to wonder how Alex is going to get around this Dragapult. Of course, he can opt to not Max Phantasm the Dragapult, do a little less damage, but just don't set off the weakness policy, and maybe from there he'll be able to survive enough attacks to put together a defense. But Arcanine doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot on this field unless it survives the turn and maybe can Will-O-Wisp that Dragapult.
And we see Dragapult once again Dynamaxing right away. As Alex also goes for his turn 1 Dynamax. Thinking it's probably the Excadrill again, given his 2 options, but I have seen different. And we can see confirm the extra drill coming out. Both Dynamaxing right away. This Arcanine really being the only difference we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm.
And expecting a change here. Morpeko showing Fake Out to Alex, stopping that Arcanine from potentially doing anything.
Yeah.
And hitting it with a big Max Phantasm, dropping its defense.
Fake Out, of course, is a fantastic move. In previous generations, Fake Out was considered almost like ubiquitous. You needed a Fake Out user in 2019 until you win Worlds, of course, with Umbreon instead of Incineroar on your team. But Fake Out's a little less good in this generation because Dynamax users ignore Fake Out. So you just have to make sure that you're a little more precise with those Fake Outs. Make sure that you don't hit the Dynamax user, and you'll still get that full value by suppressing Arcanine and making sure it can't move. Just don't hit the Excadrill with it, because Excadrill can still fire off those Max Quakes and Steel Strikes, and all it takes is like 2 damage.
And we do see the adjustment made, hitting the Max Quake into Morpeko, getting a special defense boost, revealing a Sash, which is going to be some relevant information if we go into an extra game.
Yep.
But overall, just leaving in a better position than turn 1 last game, as Arcanine now protects, stopping any sort of KO shenanigans directly from this Dragapult. Max Phantasm still going to go into it and deal a good amount, but not enough to KO through the protect, despite a critical hit.
And once again, showing off the importance of that information. Wonrae hiding the Focus Sash in Game 1, parting shot, and taking a little chip damage means that he doesn't reveal the Focus Sash in Game 1. And you have to be sitting in Alex's seat saying, wow, I wish I could have seen that Focus Sash, because like a Steel Strike into that Morpeko to get probably a 2-hit knockout there would have been so much more convenient, because you're still going to knock it out in 2 hits, and you're going to get defense boosts instead of special defense boosts to help take on this Dragapult.
Alex playing very smartly around it, though, with that Rock Ball, being able to hit Dragapult for an okay amount of damage, but dealing with the Morpeko without using any additional resources, kind of at the loss of a single stat buff.
Yeah, pretty efficient there. And it'll be Ninetales to take back the weather from Excadrill. Nope. Sun is here, sand is gone. I can't remember. Do you remember if Alex's Excadrill is Sandrush or Moldbreaker?
I don't believe we saw Sand show up last game, and we didn't see any Moldbreaker. So it's very likely to be Sandrush, but it's not guaranteed.
Interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on that Excadrill, but it's probably not going to be moving before Dragapult and Ninetales under the sun.
Alex, realizing the situation, decides to switch out his Excadrill instead of using the last turn of Dynamax. Sending in Snorlax, big threat that you mentioned previously. As Dragapult goes for a Max Phantasm into the Snorlax, what a great switch from Alex as a Heat Wave comes off. Should be enough to pick off the Arcanine, but negating the last Max move is going to be very relevant.
Yeah, it's great to be able to switch those immunities into those threatening Max moves, but you have to wonder how much Alex can push against Wonrae's team here, even as Dynamax ends. I mean, Snorlax only has so much health to work with, and if it's like a Belly Drum Snorlax to go alongside that Gothitelle, health is a crucial resource on that Snorlax, and it can't afford to take those Heatwave chips, right? So we'll have to see if Heatwave chips and Dragon Darts can bring Snorlax down to a position where it cannot get aggressive with Belly Drum.
And we get to see that Dragon Darts come out this time with 2 targets, hitting Snorlax once and Gastrodon once each, dealing decent chip to each, as Ninetales reveals a Solar Beam. Gonna go and hit that Gastrodon very hard. Does activate a Rindo Berry, but with the Dragon Darts chip, I feel like this is going to be enough.
I'm not sure, because the Rotom calc in the last game with Stab still didn't KO a Gastrodon through Rindo Berry.
Right.
Earth Power into the Dragapult will do a solid amount of damage, and we'll see if Snorlax picks up a KO with Darkest Lariat. Gets that spin on. Spin me right round, Snorlax.
Which will be able to KO the Dragapult. That's a move that I haven't seen too much on Snorlax traditionally. I believe it got it newly this gen.
I believe so as well.
But being able to ignore Intimidates through it is pretty relevant.
I think it only ignores the
Oh, just
stats of the
it's only stats
target,
of the
but it
target.
does
Okay,
ignore
my
defense
mistake.
boosts,
You're
which can
right.
be
Yeah.
very relevant.
Ignoring defense boost is still relevant.
Yeah,
My mistake. Blah.
all good. Gastrodon will protect, maybe scared of a first impression coming out of this Golisopod,
Which
but
it
it'll be
does.
landing on Snorlax instead, doing a whole lot of damage. No belly drum this game unless maybe Alex can find the space to recycle a whole lot of health back up. I would be surprised.
Heat Wave coming out. Going to deal a good amount to Snorlax, but living thanks to that berry as a facade comes and it hits Ninetales just a bit less than half.
You have to wonder if that would KO on a second try with how close that is to half damage. Maybe a damage roll higher would be able to take it, but at this point I don't think Snorlax is even going to get a chance to move. Sucker Punch from Golisopod
will be a clean pickup.
Yep, and then
and allow
Wonrae
Ninetales to deal with this Gastrodon as well, presumably.
Yeah, Wonrae choosing to Heat Wave says, well, just in case that Snorlax decides to use a move like Recycle and it doesn't get hit by the Sucker Punch, I want to make sure that it gets knocked out. Give it another try. Excadrill here. I can't imagine Excadrill will be able to take on Golisopod and Ninetales. Needs to dodge some Heat Waves. Needs to survive a whole lot, some water moves coming out of Golisopod. Aqua Jet. Triple priority attacks coming out of this Golisopod. That's a pretty neat little
That
trio.
Aqua Jet doing a lot of damage, given that Sun is still up.
Yeah.
And Heatwave able to finish off the game. Wonrae taking a clean 2-0 win to finish it off as the only undefeated person in Swiss here.
And really a powerful, powerful set by Wonrae. Had the information advantage the whole time, had a whole bunch of unconventional sets and said, I'm going to make sure that these sort of strange Pokemon that you might not know the sets of will really be able to put in their best work in this first set against you. So Life Orb Golisopod doing so much damage, more P.E.K.K.A with that Focus Sash, living a max Quake, Dragapult with that weakness policy, powering up off of Excadrill's Phantasm. The real question for Wonrae coming into Top Cut after this will be, how much information have I given away about my team? How much do other players know about my team? And will that information hinder my chances at success in Top Cut, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So he's definitely starting in a very strong position.
Yep.
And you can't hope to be anywhere else coming into this.
A fantastic showing by our only remaining 5-0 player, X&O after Swiss, Wonrae K. We'll see if we can get him on for a winner's interview in just a moment.